Hello everybody, in today's video we will take a look at how to set up Flutter on your Windows-based machine. I'm not only going to be showing you how to set up Flutter, but also the supporting tools that you require in order to efficiently develop Flutter apps. This includes things such as Android Studio, as well as an IDE such as Visual Studio Code. So if this sounds good to you, let's get into the video. The only requirement for this tutorial is that you have either Windows 10 or 11 installed on your computer. So with that said, let's get into it. So the first thing we have to do is that we need to download some prerequisites that we need to have on our system in order for Flutter to work properly. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is installing a package manager, which will allow us to actually install the packages that we require in order to set up Flutter properly. What we'll do to make our life easy is that we'll install something called Chocolatey onto our system, which is just a package manager for Windows. And this will basically allow us to install all of the requirements through the command line. So to do this, what you're going to be doing is that you're going to be coming to chocolatey.org. And once again, I'd like to mention that for all of the resources that I'm going to be using in this video, links to all of them will be down in the description below. So once you're on chocolatey.org, all you'll do is that you'll click on the install button at the top here. It'll take you to a new page. Here, you're just going to all the way come down to where it says installing Chocolatey. You're going to click on individual, and then you're basically going to be performing the following operations. Firstly, you are going to go ahead and open a PowerShell instance. So to do that, you are basically going to go to the search bar, type in PowerShell, and then right click on it and run it as administrator. Once this is done, you're going to just open the PowerShell instance up. And once this is done, the next thing that you're going to be doing is that you're basically going to be coming back and you're going to be copying this command that says set execution policy all sign. And then you're going to be coming back and pasting it into the PowerShell. You can either do Control-V to paste it, or you can just right click within the instance and that'll do the job. Press enter. This is going to go ahead, ask you. You can basically say A for yes to everything, and this is going to go ahead and set the execution policy for you. And after this is done, you are now going to run the following command. You can click on the clipboard button here, come back, put it in here, press enter, and this is going to go ahead and install Choco for you. Since Choco is already installed on my system, that's why I got this warning, but you are now going to get it. Once Choco is installed, all you're going to be doing after that is that you're going to be typing in Choco install git, and this is going to install the git version control system onto your system. And this is the actual requirement that we need in order for Flutter to work properly. So now this is done, we have all of the prerequisites done, and now we can actually move towards setting up Flutter. So to set up Flutter, what I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be firstly downloading the SDK from the official Flutter website. So then again, I'll leave a link to this down in the video's description as well, but you're basically going to be coming to the following website. And here what you're going to be doing is that you're going to come to where it says get the Flutter SDK, and then basically you are just going to click on Flutter Windows and then whatever the version of that is. So I'll let this download. It's going to be a zip file, and once it's downloaded, then I'll resume the video. So now that the Flutter zip file has been installed, what we're going to be doing is opening up our Finder window. We're going to be going to the download section, and then from here we're basically going to be taking a look at the zip file and then extracting it. So I'm just going to right click on it, extract all, and this is going to go ahead and extract the information for us. So I'm just going to let it extract. So now that we've extracted the Flutter SDK from the Flutter zip, you can click on into this folder, and this is where you're going to find the Flutter folder. What I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be basically cutting this folder from here and permanently moving it to a place on my system where I'd like to keep it. So for me, what I'll do is that I'll come to my C drive, which is usually where your Windows installation is, and then inside of here is where I'm going to be pasting that folder. And this is going to go ahead and paste this folder in for us. And if I click into this folder, you're going to see that this is where my binary file for Flutter exists, as well as all of the other supporting files for the SDK. So now that we have Flutter somewhere on our system, and you can go ahead and delete the downloads as well as the extraction folder, since now you have Flutter in your C drive. How do we tell our system or point it towards the Flutter binary? Because for now, if I open up, let's just say the terminal app within Windows, and I type in Flutter, you're going to see that nothing happens. It tells us that the term Flutter is not recognized. So how do we fix this? Well, to fix this, what we have to do is that we need to basically update the path variable within our system. So to do that, what you can do, and the easiest way, is that you can go to the search bar, and here you can type in env. When you type in env, it's going to give you an option saying edit the system environment variable. So you can click on that. and keep this window open for now. And from here, you can basically come to where it says the advanced tab, and here it says environment variables. You can click on this, and this is basically going to show you all of the environment variables that are registered to your system. We are basically going to look at the path variable. So if this exists on your system, then you're going to be editing it, and if it doesn't, then you're going to be adding it. So let's just say that it exists. If it doesn't exist, you can just click on new like so, and then you can add the variable name to be path, and then the variable value will remain the same regardless of whether you edit it or add it. So in my case, since the path already exists, I will click on edit, and then I am going to be adding a new value here. But what are we going to be adding here? Well, what we need to do is that we need to add the complete path to the Flutter bin folder. So if I go to my C drive, this is where I copied my Flutter folder. I need to go in there and I need to basically locate the bin folder. There it is. And then I'm going to right click on this, and I am going to click on copy as path, or you can just click on the folder and you can do Control-Shift-C, and this copies the path for you as well. Then you can come back and now you can add it by clicking on new and then pasting in the value like so. And then make sure that you remove the quotes. The quotes are not necessary, so remove those quotes, press enter, and there we go. Press OK, OK, and OK, and that's pretty much it. You can close down the windows, and then what you can do from here is close down any existing partial or terminal instance that you have, and then restart it. And if you do this and you type in Flutter now, voila, there you go. As you can see, it didn't give us an output which basically says that the term Flutter was not found. This time it's telling us the commands that are available to us to interact with the Flutter SDK. So this is done. The next thing that we're going to be doing now is that we're going to be basically asking Flutter what things are set up, what need to be set up, and just giving us a mental map. So to do this, what we'll do is that we will basically type in something known as Flutter Doctor, and as a doctor checks for problems if you're suffering from any. Flutter Doctor is the same command, kind of the same terminology. You put this in and it basically detects what issues might be there with your Flutter installation. So I'm going to let this command run. It's going to take some time, and once it's finished, I'll show you the output and what are some things that we can work on. So after I ran the Flutter Doctor command, you can see that it gave me an output for the things that are working on my system and the things that need to be looked at. So it gives me a check for saying that Flutter is installed. The version of Windows for us is at least Windows 10 or greater, and that Chrome is set up. So if we wanted to develop web apps, we could, but we don't have the Android toolchain set up, which basically means that we don't have the Android software development kit on our system. So the easiest way we could fix this problem, and I'll advise you to keep this partial window open, is to basically use the link again down in the description, which takes you to the place where you can download the Android Studio from. And this is the place where you're going to be coming, and let me increase the size here, it's easy for you guys to see, and you're basically going to be downloading Android Studio. So click on the download Android Studio button, accept the terms of conditions, and then download it. And once this download is complete, I'll resume the video. So now that Android Studio is installed, what I can do is I can close down this web browser window. I can open up File Explorer once again. I can go to my downloads, and I can find where the Android Studio was downloaded, and I can click on it. And now this is basically just going to open up the installation for us. And I'm just going to basically walk you through what steps you need to keep in mind when installing Android Studio onto your system so that you can actually have the Android SDK installed on your system as well. So once the actual installation starts for the setup, you click on Next. It's going to ask you what components you need to install. You have to click agree to both of them, and the reason for that is because you need to have a virtual device installed on your system in order to run the Flutter apps on it when you're developing it, if you are not going to have access to a physical device or if you don't want to use it. So I highly recommend that you click on Android virtual device as well. Click on Next. Is going to ask you for the path. I'll keep it this for now. Then it's going to say we're going to be adding it to the start menu. That's fine, and you can click on install. I'll let the install go. Once it's finished, I'll resume the video once again. So now that the installation process is complete, I'm going to click on Next, and it's going to ask me to start Android Studio. Yes, we should start it because still we haven't downloaded the Android SDK. So it's going to start up Android Studio for me. From here, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to say do not import any settings. If you have any settings, you can, and then we can agree to sending user statistics to Google. And then now this is done, you're going to see this welcome screen. You're going to click on Next, It's going to ask you for the install type. Just click on standard. It implements all of the common settings and options. And then from next, you can select the theme. Real programmers always use the dark theme, so I'm obviously going to select Dracula. And then from here, this is the important part. Here you're going to see that amongst all of the things that are going to be downloading for the SDK components, we are downloading the Android SDK build tools 34. So doesn't matter what version of build tools you're downloading, when you install Android Studio, it's going to download the latest version of them. So this should work for you as well. So it doesn't matter if it's build tools 34 or something above that. And then click next. It's going to ask you to accept all of these licenses. So you can just click on accept, and then you can click on the Android SDK preview license, click accept as well. And then you can click on finish. And this is going to go ahead and start downloading the components for you. So I'm going to let this process continue, and this might take longer than the actual installation. Why? Because the actual SDK does have a big size. So depending upon the speed of your internet, it might take a long time. So once this is finished, I'll resume the video. So now that the components have been downloading, as you can see, everything was downloaded, and it's also going to create a virtual device for you at the very end. What we can do is click on finish, and this is basically going to start up Android Studio for us. And from here, we can create a new project in Android Studio and do other things like that, but we don't need to do anything like that. So what I'm going to be doing is that I'm just going to be closing down Android Studio. Our work with that is done. So now that this is done, the next thing we'll do is that we'll come back to the same partial instance. I'll type in clear to clear the command or the output for the partial, and then from here I'll type in Flutter Doctor once again, and this time you're going to be seeing that the issue that we were seeing with the SDK not being installed might have been gone, and it might have been replaced with something else. So you can see that our Android Studio issue was gone now, and it tells us that Android Studio is installed. And now it's telling us that the Android toolchain has some kind of an issue. It's telling us that this command line tools component is missing. So how do we fix the first issue, which is that the command line tools component is missing? The easiest way that I found to fix this is that you can come to your search bar and you just basically have to start Android Studio up once again. And this might be an issue that you encounter, might be an issue that you don't, but assuming you do encounter this issue, you can come to the More Actions tab here. You can click on the SDK Manager. Once the SDK Manager opens up, you can go to the SDK Tools section and click on the specific option that says Android SDK Command Line Tools. Click on this, and this is done. And while you're at it, if you have an Intel processor, you can also install the Intel x86 emulator accelerator. This will improve the performance of the virtual device that you're going to run on your system. With this done, you can basically click on apply and OK, and then you can agree to the licenses, next, and then this is going to go ahead and install these components for you. During the installation process, it's going to ask you for the emulator settings, so you can just keep them as the default. 2 GB of RAM is recommended. Click on next, and then you can accept the license here as well. And now we are just going to let it finish. Once this is finished, you can just let it continue. Click on finish again, click on apply, and then OK, and we're basically done. So with this done, you can close down Android Studio. You can come back to the terminal instance. You can click on clear or type in clear to clear the output, and type in Flutter Doctor once again. And hopefully this time the command line issue that we were seeing with the command line tools not being available should have been fixed. So now that the tools issue has been fixed, now what we have to do is that we need to accept the agreements for using the Android licenses. So for that, we can just basically run this command. So you can highlight the command, and then you can Control C to copy it, and then you can come down and do Control V, paste it in, press enter, and this is basically going to now go ahead and agree to all of the licenses for you. You can say yes, and you just have to accept all of them. That's just the nature of the game. So Y all the way. And then once this is done, I'll do clear again, run Flutter Doctor once again, just Flutter Doctor. And this is now going to go ahead and give us a summary of everything that's on our system set up properly and what isn't. So now we can see that we have Flutter set up properly. We have the Windows version correctly installed or set up. We have Android toolchain working. We have Chrome on our system. This is not required if you're not developing web apps. We have Android Studio on our system. We have VS Code, and we have connected devices to our system, which you might be thinking what these three available are. These are actually emulators as well. So emulators on your system are also considered connected devices. And now the final thing that we can do if we optionally want to do is install Visual Studio for Windows. This is an optional IDE that we might want to use when we develop Flutter apps, but it's completely optional, so we don't have to worry about it. The only thing that you should focus on is having the Flutter SDK is set up properly, having the Android Studio set up properly, the command line SDK tool set up properly, and then some kind of an IDE. My IDE of choice is Visual Studio Code, so I'm going to show you a setup for that. But if you prefer using Android Studio or Visual Studio, then that's good as well. So with this done, we can basically close down Windows PowerShell. And now we can download Visual Studio Code. So to download Visual Studio Code, you're again going to be using a link that I'll leave down in the description, but you're basically going to be coming to the following website, and I'll increase the size as well. And from here, you're just basically going to click on download for Windows, install Visual Studio Code. It's very simple. And once Visual Studio Code is installed, you can just go to search bar, type in code, and open the Visual Studio Code app. And there we go. This is the type of output you're going to be getting, or the type of UI that you're going to be seeing. So what we're now going to be doing from here, and let me show you what we're going to be doing from here, is that you're basically going to be coming to this welcome screen, so you can close it down. And now we're going to be installing some extensions that are going to help us develop Flutter apps. So to do that, we're going to come to this extensions tab. You can, if you don't see it, you can do Control-Shift-X, and that'll take you to extensions as well. And then here, you're inside of extensions going to type in Flutter and press enter. And then you're going to install the official Flutter extension and click on install. And this is the only one that you need to do. So once this extension is installed, then we basically have the actual Visual Studio Code set up for Flutter development. So while this is installing, the next thing that I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be creating a place where I'd like to keep my Flutter code base, and this is for the Flutter apps that you develop. So what I'll do is that on my desktop, I'm going to create a new folder. You can put them anywhere you'd like. I just prefer the desktop. And for this folder, I'm going to call this development. And this is inside of this development folder, I'm going to be keeping all of my different development projects, let's just say. And then inside of here is where I will be placing my Flutter code. So what you can do from here now is that you can basically open up a new terminal instance. So I will close the existing one and open up a new terminal instance. And then from here, I'm going to be navigating into this specific Explorer, or this specific folder. So how do I get into this specific folder? Well, the easiest way to do that is you can right click on the folder and then do Control-Shift-V or Control-Shift-C like we've always been doing. And then coming back here, you can type in CD, which stands for change directory, and Control-V to paste in the path. And don't forget to remove the quotes. Press enter, and now you're within that specific folder. And then once you're within this folder, now you can just run the Flutter command to create a project. So to create the Flutter app, we're going to do Flutter create and then the name, and I'm just going to say demo_app, press enter. And this is going to go ahead and start creating the demo app project for us. So now that this is done, if I open the development folder, you're going to see that inside of that we have the demo app folder created, inside of which we have all of our Flutter files. So now what I'll do is that I'll close down PowerShell, I'll open up Visual Studio Code for me, and from here onwards, I'm going to be doing all of my development within Visual Studio Code. So I'll take this demo app folder, I'll drag and drop it into Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code will automatically detect, once you click yes, I trust the authors, that this is an actual Flutter code base. You don't have to do anything like that because you install the Flutter extension, and then you can basically come to the lib folder, click on the main Dart file, and as you can see, this is the file that you're going to see, and this is the code base for a very basic Flutter app. So now the last thing that we're going to be doing is that we're going to be running this on an Android simulator. So to do that, what you're going to be doing is that you're going to be coming down, clicking on where it says Windows, and then this is going to allow you to select the emulators that you have on your system. When you installed Android Studio, it already created a default emulator for you. So you can click on that like so, and this is going to open and launch that emulator for you. So as you can see, the emulator has now popped up onto my screen. I'll dock it to one side, and then what I'll do is that I'll dock Visual Studio to the other side, and I'll increase the size of it, and I am just going to wait for this to start. You can also click on this power button here if for some reason the screen doesn't light up automatically. Sometimes you have to do that. For me, it did that. So now we're just going to let the emulator start, and it's quite important for you to let the emulator start before you're doing anything else. So as soon as the emulator starts and it's available, you can see that the bottom here is going to change, and now it's going to show that we are going to be interacting with this specific emulator instead of what it was showing before. And then while you have a Dart file open, you can basically come here and you can click on this start debugging button right here. So with this done, I'm just going to wait for it to start, and I can click on start debugging. So it's going to take some time, obviously, depending upon how fast your system is and the resources that you might have available. But I'm just going to run this run, and we don't have to do anything by ourselves. You are not going to get any errors, if most probably. And in some time, you're going to see that the actual Flutter app is going to be running on our actual emulator. So now that the actual app is running on the emulator, you can see that it also gives us an option to open the Dart DevTools up. For now, you don't have to do it, so you can click on Not Now. And now you can interact with the app. So if I click on the plus button here, you're going to see that it tells me you have pushed the button many times. And one other cool thing that I'm going to show you is the power of Flutter Hot Reload, where I'm just basically going to be coming to my main.dart file, and where it basically says that you have pressed the button X amount of times. So just let me find that. Here it says that you have pushed this button this many times. I am going to say you have pushed the button many times, let's just say, and then save this file by doing Control S, and we're going to see that it's automatically applied those changes to our Flutter screen or to our emulator, and now our app is saying that you have pushed the button X many times. And that's pretty much it. So now you have not only Flutter installed onto your system, but you have all of the associated development tools set up properly as well, and you are now on your way to developing awesome Flutter apps. So with that said, I'm now going to let you guys go and endeavor on your new journey of becoming a Flutter developer. And as always, stay happy, stay healthy, keep learning, keep growing, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.